Hi there, I'm Attorney Hillary Walsh of New Frontier Immigration Law, and in this video I'm going to help you find a family member or loved one who's been recently taken into ICE or immigration custody. So if you are going through this, I want to start by saying I'm really sorry that your family member is being detained and basically put into an immigration jail. That has to be really stressful. But what I want to share in this video is some hope. Knowledge is power and ways for you to take action right now, not only on maybe finding your family member or your loved one, but also being able to help them with the next steps, which is hopefully getting them out of the detention center and helping them live free in the United States. I am going to start by showing you, I'm going to share my screen so that you can kind of see what I've got going on here. I'm going to start by showing you, really every step that I go through myself. I've helped hundreds and hundreds of people get out of the detention center and gone through the people who have gone through the credible fear process if they just recently crossed the border. So I'm showing you the exact steps that my team and I take to try to track down your family member if you call me and say, I'm trying to find them, this is exactly what I would do. So let's get started. The first thing we need is the person's A number. This is short for alien number. It's irritating and it's very strange, but if you're not a US citizen, you were considered an alien, so a foreigner, and you are assigned a number. Now, you may wonder, how can I find this and where might it be? And what is it? And it's a 9-digit number. It looks, when you see it on forms or when you see it on documents, it's going to look a lot like a social security number. You can see it here on this person's, I got this off the internet. It's not a real person. It says test specimen, but this is this person's A number. And you can see how it looks a lot like a social security number. Now, if you have an old A number, let's say that you first came into the US and you got your green card in the 90s, most likely you're going to have an 8-digit A number. And the easy fix there to make it a 9-digit is you just add a 0 to make it 9 digits. This will be important here in a minute when you're actually entering the number in on different websites so that you're able to locate your family member and figure out also when they may or may not have court. Please note that this number is assigned to every single immigrant, whether you're a lawful permanent resident or whether you're a child just coming to visit, or if you get a student visa, all of these things, you have an A number assigned to you. So now it's just a matter of where can I find it. For purposes of this video is ask your family member, if they call you from the detention center, ask them to look at their wristband. They'll be given a wristband that's a lot like, if you go to a concert or something like that, they give you those wristbands that have the 3 little holes in it and it's clasped on really tightly. Your family member is going to have one of those as well. It's like those never breaking, never melting plastic things. And it's going to have their name and their A number on it and their country that they're from. So ask them to look on it and they should be able to give it to you. Now, if you're not in touch with them yet, obviously this piece doesn't help you very much. But maybe your family member has had a work permit or a green card in the past. And again, this is this is a pretend green card. And you can see here it's listed as a USCIS number. Okay, it won't say A number, but it will say USCIS number. And it's the same thing. It will be on their green card, their work permit. And then if you've ever petitioned for them or they've had a petition, or maybe they have other immigration court documents, these are 2 different types of documents. This one's called a notice to appear. And if your family member or you have ever had one of these, you're going to have a file number right here. And this is where your A number is going to be, okay? And then down here, this is a notice of action. This is going to be similar to any petition that's ever really filed with immigration. They're going to give you this receipt, and it will say on here what the A number is for the person who's getting the petition for them, okay? So these are different places that you can find where the A number is for your family member. The reason this is important is because once we go to the next screen, and really, if you want to contact the detention center and put money on your family member's account so they can make phone calls out, you pretty much have to have the A number. So it's important for a lot of reasons, but this is another one of those reasons. You want to find out if and when they have court. I'm going to show you in this video not only how to find them if you don't know where they're detained at, but also if they have an upcoming court hearing. So this website is called, you just Google exactly this right here, EOIR, Automated Case Information, and you can see on this screen where it says what the website is. But literally every single time I do this, I just Google EOIR, Automated Case Information, and it's going to pop up with this screen. First, there will be a pop-up and you'll have to say, I agree, basically like I'm coming into this and I agree to be able to access the website. I'll make a note here that if English is not your preferred language, you can change the language to your preferred language right here on this screen. So go for it if you need that. This is just a screenshot, so I'm not going to be able to enter anything in, but you need to enter in the A number here. And remember, this is helpful because this is 9 digits. And if your person, your family member, loved one's A number is only 8 digits, just add a 0 in this first field and then enter in the remaining digits. The next screen after you hit submit is going to tell you if they have any upcoming court hearings and really anything related to their immigration case. Now, before we get into what it looks like if you get this screen, which shows you if this person has like what their hearing date is and everything else, what happens if you get this error message? You enter in, I just entered in the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And of course it says there's no case found for this A number. Now I have many times I have entered in correct A numbers and gotten this error message. This can mean a whole host of different things. And I'm going to kind of jump a little bit ahead in our slides. What if this is their A number and it's not bringing anything up? What's going on? Number one is I have made many an error. Double check the A number. Did you put it in correctly? Because sometimes we are looking and there are 3 8s and only 2 8s and that sort of thing. And then you'll get this error message even if you put the A number in correctly, that they're a recent arrival. Now, if they've recently arrived in the United States and they were crossing the border and they were apprehended, in particular, if they were apprehended within 100 miles of the border when they were crossing, or maybe they went to a border checkpoint and said, I would like to seek asylum, please let me in, and they were then taken into immigration custody, they are most likely going to go through what's called the credible fear interview process. I have a totally separate video on that on our YouTube channel and on our podcast, and you can listen to that, and we're going to link it down below in our show notes so that you're able to see and review that if that's something that's helpful to you. But the reason I mentioned the credible fear process is because there are 2 different types of immigration proceedings that your family member may be in if they were apprehended within 100 miles of the border. One is a credible fear proceeding where they have to go through this interview process and prove to some extent that they have a credible fear of being removed to their home country, and then they will get to see an immigration judge. And that is when, if they're allowed to see an immigration judge, that is when you'll enter their A number and you'll start seeing hearing notices and information about what's happening next with their case. But you really will often get that no A number found until they've at least had their credible fear interview. Okay, so if you're like, I know this is the right A number, I know I'm putting it in correctly, and I know they're detained by immigration, why isn't this showing up? It's very likely that they're in credible fear proceedings, and you should go watch this other video so you're educated and aware of what happens next with the credible fear process. Last but not least, of why this may be, like let's say they're not in credible fear proceedings. Let's say they've been in the United States for 20 years and they were apprehended right here in Phoenix, Arizona. They're not within 100 miles of the border. Why isn't the A number showing up when I enter it? It's very possible that their case just hasn't been registered with the immigration court yet. So I've had this take weeks and weeks and weeks, and in some cases, the notice to appear, the document that starts the whole case, got lost between the detention center and the court, and we had to really fight just to get the case started for the client who had been detained for a long time and nothing was showing up for him. So it's possible that for some reason the court just hasn't gotten the documents to get the case registered and opened inside this portal that we see here. Okay, let me just make sure I've covered everything for you here. I think that's correct. And the other piece on this number 3 is, let's say they arrived at the border. We have this happening all the time. It's very, very frequent, especially for some of our Cuban clients who you come to the border, you ask to come in, and you're given a parole document. Or perhaps you're entering the country, you're apprehended entering the country, but you have a small child with you. A lot of times what will happen is they will give you a parole document or a release on your own recognizance. That just basically means you're going to have to show up. We're going to trust that you're going to do that. Here's this paper that says when you need to do that. And again, a lot of times your immigration case doesn't get opened for months and months and months. So you're going to have to keep checking if that's the case for you. Or, if you're obviously not detained, you're going to have to keep checking over and over and over to make sure that once your case is open, you show up for court. This is a really, really sketchy time for people in that situation, but I digress because this video really is for people who are detained. So you enter in the A number, and let's say that you enter in the A number and it's correct, and this is what comes up. I'm going to show you 2 different screens to help you really understand right now what you're looking at here and also here. They're the same. You can see that they're the same 4 quadrants, and I'm going to explain exactly what each one means because they're for 2 different people and they have 2 different, they're in a different place in their immigration case. Okay, so this one is for someone who's in removal proceedings. So let me just kind of start by explaining what the 4 boxes mean. This first box tells you when the person's next hearing is, and it's going to say what type of hearing it is, if it's by Zoom, or rather WebEx, I should say, when and where. Now, the when and where, it's important to note that this time is going to be based on the time zone of the court. So if you're not really sure, sometimes people are detained in Louisiana, and they have a judge who's sitting in a different court in a totally different place, and you're wondering, well, what time is the hearing going to happen? And it's, the safest bet is to call and ask, but I would go based on what the court is because that's when the judge is planning to appear. So in this situation, this is Eloy, Arizona. So this is 8:30 a.m. Arizona time. And this is with Judge Jennifer Gaze, okay? So this is this person's next hearing, and it says that it's a master calendar hearing. You may wonder, what is a master calendar hearing? It really is just a hearing to set things up on the calendar. They usually take 15 minutes or less, but they are extremely important because if you mess up a master calendar hearing, your whole case can be tanked, and there's pretty much, you don't pass go, you don't collect $200, you could get deported if you mess up a master calendar hearing. It's really remarkable. So short hearing, very, very important. Okay, next up. Over here on the next side, we have decision and motion information. What this means is that a decision, if there has been one in your person's case, it's going to show up here. And if there was a motion to reopen filed, it's going to show up here. Right now, this person has a case pending, so there are no decisions or motions that at play here because this person is still actively in removal proceedings. Things that will be over here, you'll see in just a moment, I'll go ahead and click over, is here's where the immigration judge ordered removal. This is the date, and this is the court where it happened. Down here on the bottom left, you're going to see that this is when, if you have an appeal filed or pending, or if there has been appeal, what the outcome of the appeal, if anything, is. That's what it will say here. And these are appeals related to the Board of Immigration Appeals. It won't tell you appeals about anything else, like if you appeal to the 9th Circuit or the 5th Circuit. None of that information is contained here. It really is only if you filed an appeal to the Board of Immigration Appeals are you going to see anything here. And last but not least, if you need to contact the court, it's this court right here. This is the phone number and this is the address, okay? So you won't want to mail anything to this address. This is where you would file additional documents, and this is the address you would use, which is very helpful for attorneys or for family members who are trying to submit things on behalf of their detained family member. Okay, so we see this. We know that this person, because now we've done this, we know that they have a hearing on August 1st in Eloy with Jennifer Gaze, with Judge Jennifer Gaze. And now we can click over and see by comparison what this person has going on. So this person doesn't have any future hearings. Their court case is closed. The immigration judge ordered removal on June 28th, so just a couple of days ago, about less than a month ago, in Phoenix. And here's the court address and phone number, and that there's an appeal that's due. This is the deadline for filing by July 28th, okay? That gives us a snapshot. So I want to stop here and say that if your family member is detained, most likely your family member is going to have something that looks like this, showing that they have an upcoming hearing. If they don't, and it says something over here like the immigration judge affirmed, that means that the immigration judge has basically said the asylum office was correct, they don't have a credible fear for removal, and they're being processed to be deported. Similarly, if your family member's case says that the immigration judge ordered removal and that there are no future hearings in this case, and you know that they're detained, I would be extremely concerned if this person, this Flores person, called me and I looked their case up. I would be extremely concerned that they are about to be deported, because we already have an immigration judge who's ordered removal and we haven't filed an appeal yet. So we would need to be, it stresses me out just thinking about it. We would need to be very proactive, because depending on where your family member is from, if they're from Mexico, for example, they deport regularly to Mexico by bus and sometimes by plane, depending on where they're deporting out of the United States, and they do it regularly. So we would need to hurry, because this person already has a removal order. The order's been given. Now it's ICE's job to come in and make that happen. This is, if you have a family member and they are detained and this is something that you're looking at when you look their information up, please call a lawyer, call me. I want to help you. This is urgent that you do something about this, okay? Now, let's troubleshoot a little bit. Again, we went through some of this where, what if my family member's detained? I know their A number, but it's not bringing up their case. We've kind of gone through this, but what else can I do to find them? Let's say that you enter in their A number on the EOIR automated case information website and it says no case found. What else can we do? Because these websites show you, not with certainty, for this one in particular, this is Eloy Immigration Court. The only reason that this judge would be assigned to this case and have hearing for this person is if they are detained and they have jurisdiction over this human. So this automatically tells me, without needing to look anything else up, that most likely this person is detained in Eloy Immigration Court or Immigration Detention Center, because the Eloy Immigration Court is wanting to have a hearing with them. So this gives me a really strong signal. And the way you can look this up, if you don't know, where is Eloy? Is there an immigration court there? Who is the immigration court? You can do a Google and it will give you that information. Okay, so let's say nothing comes up though when you enter in their A number. What else do we do? The number one thing I do, and I do this even if I find them on the other website and I see that they have a hearing with Judge Gaze, I still go look them up in the online detainee locator, because I want to make sure that they haven't been moved, and then that hearing is just going to need to be reallocated to a different judge, okay? Because let me share with you kind of what happens. A lot of people get detained in Arizona, and then they get moved to Louisiana. Louisiana has a mandatory minimum number of people that they have to detain all the time in these specific detention centers. So they move people from all around the United States to Louisiana and fill that detention center up first because they have a contract. The facility itself has a contract that it doesn't matter if you have a person in the detention center bed, in the jail bed or not, you have to pay me for a certain number. I don't know off the top of my head, but I think it's like 520. I may be just making that up, but I really think it's 520. They have a minimum that I don't care if you have 12 people here or if you have 550 people here, you have to pay me for at least 520 people. And what that means when they don't have a lot of people detained in Louisiana is they've got people in Arizona and they've got people in New York and they've got people in New Mexico, and they move all these people there to make sure and save really the government money because they're paying for this no matter what, try to get occupancy high. And that's why they move people out of the state very quickly. I mean, from a very real perspective as an immigrant advocate, I also know that it's very difficult to win cases in Louisiana. And so there's also that aspect of why they move people out of Arizona and into Louisiana is because although it's not great, you don't have great odds in Arizona, you have really, really, really bad odds in Louisiana. So maybe it's just the jaded part of me that notices this fact and latches onto it, but I feel it's really important to share with you that there's the mandatory minimum, but there's also a likelihood of losing, and that ships people out a lot faster through the deportation machine in the United States, even when they have great claims that had they been, let's say in San Francisco, they would have won and been able to get a green card. So, okay, back to the regularly programmed show here. Online detainee system. Again, you can change your language, change it to your preferred language. You can put your A number in here. You don't need to put any dashes. If it's 8 digits, add the 0 to the front and make it 9. It kind of explains that exact same thing here. And then you need to know the country of birth. They will have listed and told immigration. You hit search by A number and it's going to pop up. You'll also have to do a little math problem, a simple math problem in there, which always makes me question my education when I have to count basic math on my fingers, okay? The other aspect is if you really don't have their A number, and this is very, very common, especially for people who are just entering the United States, and you just don't have an A number assigned to you yet, or you haven't been able to tell your family, here's what's on my wristband so that they can give it to you. You can search by their first name and last name, country of birth, and then you do their date of birth. What is so hard about this, though, is welcome to America, where we only use first, middle, and last name. A lot of Hispanics use multiple names, and sometimes Hispanics will have 4 names. It is impossible to know which combination of names will be the first name and the last name if you have 4 names. So what will happen sometimes is the first name will just be the first name, and you'll have to try entering in all 3 last names, and then 2 of the last names, and then just 1 of the last names. Maybe it's the first last name, the second last name, or the third last name. And it takes some patience because you have to go through it and it kicks you around over and over and over. But that is the challenge with this. So if you don't have the A number, this is very challenging, but it's not impossible. And you can go from there. So that is one of the options available to you if you don't have the A number and you're looking for your family member, or if you do have the A number and you're trying to find exactly where they're located. Okay, so that's the online detainee locator. Again, I literally just Google these 3 things. Online detainee locator. It's going to be an ICE website. You can see that everything is about ICE on this website. This will be familiar once you get there. I just Google it. That's what I recommend for you to do as well. Now, let's say that this keeps coming up and it says 0. You can't find where your family member is located. It just says 0. This could be because they're not detained by immigration. They may have been taken to a prison first. A lot of times, if someone is re-entering the country without permission and they're stopped, even if they're coming here to seek asylum, which is legal, they have unlawfully crossed the border in the eyes of the federal government. So they're processed for illegal reentry. they will go to federal prison first. If you're in Arizona, that means that they've probably gone to Florence Correctional Facility, and that is a jail. They also house immigrants there, so this gets a little confusing, but it is a prison. So what you'll want to do is call Florence Correctional Center or Facility, I can't remember, I think it's facility, and give the name, the date of birth, and see if your family member is located there if they're not showing up in this system and you think that they're in Arizona. Now, if you think that they're detained by immigration and you just don't know where, maybe they were apprehended in Texas, that's the last time you talked to them, is you can Google Texas detention centers for immigrants and you're going to get a list and you can just start calling. And this is something that we do when we're trying to find family members. So I'm not trying to give you the hard way of going about this. This just really is the challenge that finding people can present sometimes, okay? So you can call, you can explain, I have a family member who I think is in the detention center. Can you please help me? This is their name, this is their date of birth, and this is where they're from. And then they may tell you what the A number is or whether or not they're there. I will say that I'm always really impressed. I always have this negative view of the people who work in detention centers. Like I get in my mind that they're going to be really rude. And I often find that they're actually really nice and that they want to help you find their family member too. It's not always. Sometimes we talk to a-holes. We've all been there. But for the most part, I will say I'm very consistently grateful for the help of the people who work in the detention centers. All right, the other option, if you can't do anything, you've done step one, you've done step two, and you can't get a hold of them, you can't find them, is wait for them to call you. So pick up the phone. If you're like me, I screen a lot of my phone calls. I don't want to talk to what I feel like is a scammer every single time I pick up my phone and I don't know who it is, but they may call you. They usually will get one basically free phone call, kind of like you see in the movies. You want to pick up the phone, press 1 to accept the call and that sort of thing if they call you. Now, if you cannot find them, you can, and you think that they're about to be deported, you don't know what's going on, you can't find them, you can always email. This is one of the many asylum office emails that I have. Sorry, I wish that when I had made this PowerPoint that it would have just been one long line, but it's czar-apso period czar-apso at uscis.dhs.gov. So it's all one long line of an email address, and you can email them and say, I write on behalf of name, whose date of birth is whatever date of birth is, from whatever country they're from. I write to inform you that they have a fear of removal and would like to have a credible fear interview. Please do not deport them before they have this interview. That's really all you can do. That's really all you can do at that point, okay? That should trigger within the asylum process kind of a push pause on them getting deported without a credible fear interview. It should allow them to be able to seek asylum. Which is basically a way of saying they will get to talk to someone, which means they will hopefully be able to contact you because they have a right to have a representative like an attorney represent them in this process, and then they get access to a phone and all of that good stuff. If they call you, you get to step 3 and they reach out to you and they're like, I don't know what's going on, tell them to say these magic words if in fact they have a fear of removal. If they're not afraid of being deported and they're just trying to come to the country because they wanted to come to the country, they don't have any fear, don't coach them to say these words because they can actually get into a lot of trouble for trying to abuse the asylum process, which could bar them from a lot of things in the future. So you do not want to abuse these magic words. But if you talk to them and you know that they have any sort of fear, any fear whatsoever of being afraid of being deported, they can say these magic words, which are, I have a fear of being deported. I have a right to have an interview about my fear. I would like to use my right to have an attorney at my interview with me. May I please have an interview? You cannot deport me without this interview. That's your understanding, like I have a fear of removal, I want this interview. That's going to signal to them okay, we can't deport this person without this interview, okay? And that's gonna help a lot to pump the brakes on the machine that's trying to deport them. That's the end, my friends. That's the end, my friends. I hope this is helpful. If you're going through this situation, I promise, there's light at the end of the tunnel. You can contact me. I've helped loads of people be able to get out of the detention center. That's so British of me to say loads. Lots and lots of people, I'll say it my more American way, get out of the detention center. We can help your family member no matter where they are detained. So we're here located. My office is physically in Phoenix. I can help your family member no matter where they are detained. I will be honored to help fight for their right to be able to stay in the United States and be able to get out. And you can contact me if you need anything whatsoever. I wish you all the best. Again, I'm sorry you're going through this, but I hope that this education empowers you with a few steps that you can take right now to help your family. Not only just find them, but help them. Be well.